Can be hard when you grow up. People fill you with doubt. You start thinking about what you're gonna do now. And it's do or die, gotta make it count. So lose your worries, let your problems go on until my whole body burns out. I ain't never gonna slow down. I ain't never gonna slow down.
Welcome everyone, this is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about family. Now, family is going to be one of those things that you might be taking for granted at every turn of your single day, life, whatever. I have taken family for granted. We just kind of think that family is always going to be there. Now, sometimes they're going to be there for the good. Sometimes they're going to be there for the bad. Sometimes they're just going to be gone. Whether we see family as an asset, we see family as something that's annoying, especially like if you're a teenager, you're like, oh, you're so annoying, mom. You're so annoying, dad. Yet there are teenagers that might wish for your situation, for your mom, your dad, the people that we take for granted. It's not until we start to lose the ones we love do we pay attention. Yet today can be a great opportunity that we pay attention to family, to the ones we love, to the ones we think we love. Sometimes we have good for our family, we have good in our mind, but then there's going to be the aspect of, do you truly care about what's happening in your family? Do you truly care what will go on if you got bad news in your mind? Would you say good riddance? Do you have these negative thoughts? Do you have positive thoughts? That is just for your blood family. But what about your family that you indoctrinate in, the family you marry into, your in-laws, the children that you birth and you bring into the world? What about them? Those are family too. But then there's going to be an aspect of family about your neighbors, everyone who's around you. Are those people your family, your tribe, your circle? There are so many aspects to family that people fail to understand what family truly is. But today we're going to be having a family discipleship coach come on, Terence Chatmon. He's going to be helping us understand what family is, what we should be looking at, and how to enhance that family so we can have more fulfillment and success in our life. So here's that interview with Terence and myself. Welcome, Terence Chatmon, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic.
Today, we're going to be talking about your work. You are a family discipleship coach, and we're going to be talking all about that today. Family is one of those things I think many people take for granted. We have it growing up most of the time, whether it be just one person, maybe we're by ourselves if we are in a dire situation, but most of us can develop a family life. Yet we take our family for granted every single day. Sometimes we wait until we get a text message, a phone call that someone had passed away, and we are just not present. So we're going to be talking all about the ins and outs of family today, talking about your work and how you help unite people get closer to being more like family than what we are living in today, in our world today especially. But in your own words, tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help them.
Well, it's a great intro that you mentioned. When you think about family, we all have a family. We come from somewhere. Whether it's been a positive experience or maybe a challenging experience, we have folks who have birthed us into this world and love us and care for us, want to do the right thing, even if they don't know how to sometimes. But the heart might be in the right place or it may not. When I think about a family discipleship coach, for us, it's many facets of our life. And many of us deal with all types of coaches. We have fitness coaches, all different types of coaches in our life. But the one we tend to not even think about is our spiritual side of coaching. What does that look like? There's three primary drivers in our life, regardless of who you are and what your beliefs are and so forth. These drivers are consistent. You're going to have some form of spiritual driver in your life. You're going to have an intellectual driver, or you're going to have a physical driver, something that's going to drive you in these three areas. There's some others, but those are the primary three. And we believe that if your intellectual and physical drivers are outdistancing or outpacing, if you will, your spiritual drivers, whatever they may be, your life will become off kilter. Your priorities will come off kilter. And one of the things that we value, especially in America and really around the world, is family. We say that we value family. We prioritize family, but yet 53% of Americans have family as their number one priority. The number two is way down the list, but family is the number one priority in their life. But yet, sometimes, although we try to do the right thing, we don't know how to raise our kids, for example, to grandparents our kids. And as a result, we have children today with high level of depressions, high levels of anxiety, not just children, but people across the board. And there's a reason for that. And so the family discipleship coach comes in. It helps whoever has guardianship for the child. It could be a parent, grandparent, whoever has guardianship for the child. We help them to think about how to be intentional in raising their kids, especially in a faith-based scenario.
There's a saying that they say sometimes when we're growing up, we forget that our parents, our grandparents are growing older. And we're so focused on us, right? We're worried about staying up to the latest trends. Maybe we are trying to stay in line with our peer groups. And we forget that our parents are getting older because we're so busy on, okay, I want to be 16 so I can drive. I want to be 21 so I can drink. I want to be 30 years old so I can start a family, whatever age you give yourself for that. But many people don't realize that family was always from the jump, was always from the start. And it's like I don't know if this is a society thing or if this is just how people naturally just grow up. It's just like, I'm a lone warrior. I'm going to kind of stay with my peer groups and I'm going to focus on them, and my family takes a back burner. What's that like in your work?
Well, I love the quote from Warren Buffett. He talks about what is success? What does that mean to you in your life? And many would say Warren Buffett would probably have something to say around finances or money or economics or something like that. But that's not his description of success at the end of the day. For him, he describes it as that for those who I loved, that they would love me in return, is how he describes success. So imagine that family is ultimately the ones that should be loved and that should love one another. There should be unity in that area. And so what is success? When we reach the end of our days, after all the different ages and stages of life, we come to the realization that nothing else is more important but to be loved by someone. And hopefully that someone, if you have a spouse or you have children, grandchildren, etc., hopefully you're loved by someone that you love and they love you in return. Can you imagine at the end of the day, at your funeral, at your service, and there's no one there? Or even before that, imagine there was a famous actor who I will not name. He was the world's view on Thursday night. And he had a falling out. He had some different issues, some different challenges with women and so forth and accusations. And it was interesting that at his particular trial, when they were about to present the verdict, he had no family members there. Spouse wasn't there. His children wasn't there. He had gone through one of the most horrific challenges in his life and about to be sentenced, and no one was there present. Is that the life that we truly describe as successful? I don't think so. And so I come back. For those that you love, will they truly love you? How much are you investing in them? How much are we self-centered in what we're all about versus anothering? Do we care about anyone else as much as we love ourselves? And then, the fact is we have to mature. We go through ages and stages of life. You talked about them. I mean, when we're young, between 0 and 5, we need affection. We need to be cuddled. When we're 6 to 10, we start to think about, do we matter? Do we have purpose? When we're 11 to 16 or 17 or so, we want to have family and fun and community. And if we don't have those building blocks in place, we start to search for them. When we get older as young adults, we always want that independence. We don't want to be like your father, Chevrolet. We want to be a little bit different. And that's normal, right? As we mature about 28, 30, we start typically it's the time we get married and all of a sudden our life starts to change. We have these little ones and our life shifts dramatically and we start to mature again. And we start to think about parents and grandparents differently. Real quick, I'll say when they were young, you're a genius as a parent. The child think you're an absolute genius. By the time they get to high school, you're an absolute idiot. But by the time they get to 28, You start to know a little bit more again. By the time you're 30, you're a genius. You're somewhat of a genius again because they realize everything you've been telling them is right on. And that's just a cycle that's been happening for a long, long, long time. But the fact is, there's nothing else that's more important than the family, the one who has given you the very foundation from the very beginning.
And what you said there, he says, do we care about anyone but ourselves, or do we love someone more than ourselves? And I don't think enough people ask themselves that question. I think a lot of people, they just kind of go through, and if they feel good, they feel good. If they feel bad, that's what they focus on. And as you said early on, we have some of the highest levels of depression and anxiety and stress in our world today because we focus on that lack of love that we're feeling. Because when we have the good in our life, when we have things are perfect, we're not necessarily worried about them until we have to worry about them. One of the best examples is our parents' health. Everything is good, right? Business as usual. But then something happens, you got to stop what you're doing to take care of them. Maybe you put them in a nursing home, depending on basically what traditions you were instilled with, because I believe it comes down to that. If you just throw your parents in a nursing home, that is your values, your traditional values that you were instilled with. It's not so much of, well, they need special care most of the time, because you can always get CNAs that come to the house. That's what we do for our family. That's what we did for our family. When my parents are older, they're more than welcome to come live with me. I'll hire a CNA, come to the house, easy. I worked in a nursing home for about 6 years. I seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what happens typically is day by day, these people are just sitting there. No family comes to see them. They deteriorate so much more quickly because they're there in that box. They can't leave. And I want to get into the conversation of the aspect of family. What does that do to the mind? How does that strengthen the mind? Does it lift us up? Does it make us more proactive? Does it make us more purposeful? We talked about fulfillment and success already, but does it make a person become more in their day?
It's a great question. And we think so, right? Look at the last few years coming out of the pandemic. I mean, one of the things, we have folks, in the home again, and they probably had to get reintroduced to their spouse and to their kids. Like, who are these kids, right? And all of a sudden, we love the school teachers now because, now we have a different role. But I think parents rediscovered themselves in the last few years, and they realize, really, what is this parenting thing all about? A lot of times we try to abdicate these responsibilities to whether it's the school system, which is good, or camps or different things. But the fact is, we have been given a privilege and honor to raise these kids. This is a living being that I believe is a gift from God. I mean, this is an absolute joy and privilege to raise up an individual, a human. And we all have different roles and purposes in that process. And so I think community, remember what I said, we start to search for meaning, identity, affirmation, purpose. If that's void, we will search somewhere else for it. We will search it because we are built for community. We are built for union. We are not built for isolation. We weren't designed to be in isolation. In fact, the reason that man was designed, it was because God wanted to have a companion. The reason that woman was birthed from the man is because man wanted a companion that was, similar to him. And so we're not born to be in isolation. We were born to be in a community. And when we lose community, especially at the very foundation, the home, man, we begin to struggle in ways that is difficult to really dive into because the mind is a powerful thing. And the mind is seeking that community and affirmation. And if void of it, that's why when you typically go and you're dealing with certain issues on the psychological side or psychiatric side, the first place we start is, how was your home life? How was your early years? Because those years impact your life. In fact, between the ages of 3 and 14 years of age is really where you're shaping your personality, your worldviews, etc. It starts at a very early age. So what your kids experience in those 3 to 13 formative years will actually impact, unless there's a dramatic experience in their life, will impact the rest of their life and how they think about life. You just mentioned it. You said, hey, I believe because of probably some upbringing or some value things that's been placed in your life, or even experiences that you've had in different centers, you say, yeah, we should care for our elderly, right? Not everyone has that belief because we're so much in what's in it for me generation. It's about iPhones and I this and I that. We don't think about the other person. But what did the Father say? The Father said to love him and to love others, your neighbor, greater than you love yourself, because he already knows we're selfish. We're selfish individuals. But to love another is where you have to bring forth sacrifice, surrender, humility, great dependence on someone else other than you, right? And imagine if we were to lift up our seniors, our fathers, our mothers, our grandparents, and so forth in a different way and honor. It has always been a tradition in society to honor your elderly. Today, we think about how do we throw them away. And throwing them away is throwing away a part of your life, a part of your history, a part of your culture. And so I want to get to know those folks as part of our coaching process. We're going to teach young families how to carry forth that tradition, how to live that life out. And we call it unity in the spirit, how to connect these generations so that the value of one is not tossed out and lost because of neglect and so forth. We're going to help families do that, especially for us on the spiritual side. And so we have what we call master family champions who've been trained to coach parents on how to be intentional in raising their kids and passing on these values, because it has to become theirs, right? We can't force these values. We can train them, we can develop them, we can demonstrate them, we can live it out and walk that life. But at the end of the day, they have to make a personal decision. And the question is, who are you going to glorify, yourself or another?
There's an aspect that some people are going to be thinking now that I had such a rough family life, and they're just like, I'm already messed up. And they kind of continue that trend with their family that they begin. Maybe they find someone they love, they get married, have some kids, but in their mind, they just have that negative upbringing in those formative years, as you were saying. That is their foundation. Yet that does not have to continue to be their history, their foundation anymore. They can begin to change that. But a lot of people are just stuck in the habit of what they know versus of what they can learn. It's not so much of the families that do well. If we look at the communities, for example, I don't mean to make it black and white, but I am. Black and white communities. The reason why maybe the Black community is suffering is because the aspect of family is just so thrown out there, right? We have a high single mother household, fathers are out of the picture. Where is the family unit? Yet if we look at another culture's family, they're more united. And when that happens, they have a stronger foundation. It's almost like, would you rather start from scratch every single day when you wake up, or would you rather build an empire piece by piece, brick by brick? People fail to understand that. Family is that, where if you had a rough life, if you had a rough upbringing, that does not have to be your tomorrow too. How can people start to change those negative pasts that they had to start to focus on the good family building habits and to keep that going generation after generation?
It's so good. And I want to just kind of bring some context to what you just shared. Really, in our nation, all families are struggling, regardless of race, because of moral and spiritual decay, is my belief, but we can get more into that. But here's some stats that I think may help. One, in the African American community, obviously, we have many challenges. You spoke to single parent households, it's somewhere in the area of 72 to 75%, depending on the study. Think about it, out of every 100 homes, 7 of them may have one parent within the household. In the white community, that number is around 58% to 64%, depending on the study. In the Hispanic homes, which has never happened in the history, 33 to 38% of Hispanic households are now single parents as they adapt more to the American way of life. We've never seen that before. And then get this, 10% of our children are growing up in no biological households whatsoever. Why is that important? The very foundation of a father, a disciplinarian in the home, is missing. However, there are a lot of men who are now raising kids. And so when we think typically of single parent households, we typically think of the wife or the woman. But now we see a trend where men are caring for kids as much as women. When one person is in the household, everything is impacted from economics to childcare to attention to all of that. It affects the very essence of the family life. And I don't want to say scars the child, but it sets a model in front of the child that's not whole. It sets a model where something's missing. They can't quite connect all the dots, but they know that something is missing because we were birthed into a scenario that I believe includes a husband and wife and children. It's a nucleus of a family. We used to say in the African American community, it takes a village to raise a child. And so we had multiple families and maybe multiple parents, right? We had the grandparent, we had the mother, the father, we had Unsu down the street, we had, some neighbor who was the neighborhood watch. So we didn't need the neighborhood watch. We already had that. We had all that stuff in place, and all of them had permission and authority to take care of business if needed. Now we have the garage, the remote scenario where everybody just pulls in, put that garage down. We never see them. You don't walk down, play marbles down the street, knock on the door like we used to. And, that stuff doesn't happen, and their communities are being challenged as a result. Well, all of this is impacting generations. And I believe things like single parents households, dual income households are impacting families because now no one's in the home to see the child. When the child comes home, there's no one in there. And so what do? They turn on the TV or they turn on the games. Get this. Our children are spending 10.3 hours on some device every day. Every day. Now get this, 10.3 hours. Maybe you're getting 6-7 hours of sleep. So we're already up to 17.3 hours, right? And then you got to go to school. 10.3 hours. What we're doing, we're using that device to babysit our kids. And I'm not poo-pooing on devices. The fact is they're here. Technology's here and it's going to stay. How do we put boundaries around these things as we put boundaries around our life? The reason I started with moral and spiritual decay, because we can come up with a lot of issues, but your past never impacts your future. It should not impact your future, but the fact is it does. What we experience in life impacts our life for a long time until we're able to come up. But I want you to know that there's hope. I want your audience to know there is hope regardless of whether you had a good childhood or a bad childhood. Sometime your mess can become your message. Use your mess as your message. And the reason that you want to do that, because no one has experienced what you have experienced. No one can describe it the way that you can describe it. The problem is, though, we try to get through that mess on our own, where we need others in our life to give us help. Sometimes it's mental help, sometimes it's different type of support, sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's other. But you need a mentor in your life. You need someone investing in you, walking with you, caring for you, loving with you, because we crave it. We crave. First of all, I believe we crave the Father's love. And secondly, we crave each other's love. And void of that, there's that hole that we feel. But I want you to know that there's hope, because I believe there's an ultimate Father that gives that love and never fails, never fail you. The question is, do you know that Father that's greater than even your biological father? So we're teaching parents how to be unified in what we call the spirit. Because at the end of the day, if we are on the same spirit, we can disagree, right? And still connect. My question is, do you like me and love me? Or do you love me and tolerate me? It's a different mindset. See, I can love you and like you, or love you and tolerate you. Many times in our families today, because of the experiences you mentioned, we say we love, but we tolerate versus love and like. I want to be around my parents. My parents, fortunately, have passed on, but my kids, I don't know why they keep coming back. They want to be around. They want to hang out. They want to come by Papa's house, et cetera, et cetera. Why? Because they grew up in a household, not that we were perfect in zero means, but what did we demonstrate? We demonstrate that they were loved. One message is, if you have not been loved as you should have been loved, let that break with you. You can start a new beginning. You can be the one that demonstrates that love beyond your power and understanding and pull from a source greater than you. Be that beacon of light for the next generation.
An aspect of like the broken family, as we were talking about, especially when it comes to marriage and religion, it's until death do you part. But I say a lot of people are living now in their mindset until I don't feel like doing my part anymore. Death is no longer in the picture, because now death to them in their mindset is I want to live my life because I only have one. And I feel so tied down because you are restricting me in the sense that I can't go out and do the things that I want because of obligation. Where a lot of families, they feel obligated to take care of their kids, love and cherish your spouse. And it could be a bit daunting for people. So sometimes what they do is they say it is better just to resolve the marriage and then to not worry about all of the stuff we created. The children suffer the most there, not so much of the husband and the wife. How can we start to get people to look at maybe it could be more of the spiritual aspect? Well, let's look at the spiritual aspect. I don't want to look at the law aspect of marriage, just the unity aspect of bringing a man and a woman together and saying, hey, this is going to be something we're working toward, working on no matter what. I want to love you and I want to like you. I don't want to tolerate you. I don't want to throw it away when things get rough because it will get rough. It will. But how can people start to get the mindset that no matter what, this is it?
Well, that's why I like to start as a mindset, because your mindset and your heart, it's just a few inches away, but it starts with your mind and your worldview, and then your heart reflects that. And so here's the idea. First of all, let's examine what love is. And from my perspective, love is a commitment. I believe it's a little bit further. Love is a commitment, but the love that I'm talking about is ordained by God and is undergirded by emotions. A lot of times what we think is love is about emotions, and it's convenient. When I want to love, I can love. But in my view, love is a commitment, but it's ordained by God and it's undergirded by emotions. And as we get older, it gets more challenging because now you're hearing divorces after 20, 30, 40 years of marriage. And the reason is the very foundation that marriage was probably built on was not a commitment, was not love. It was either convenience or stability, or the child was at the center of that marriage, and now the child has gone off and starting to take on his own life or her own life, and the spouse, whoever was there, they feel a void in their life, and they never really became friends, they never really became partners, and now they have this big void in their life, and all of a sudden the way you comb your hair to the left or the right is a problem. Whether you put the seat down or the seat up is a problem. Everything's a problem because love wasn't a commitment. Once we start taking the approach, well, what is love? What is marriage? Why marriage? And we look at the correct view of marriage. And marriage was ordained by God. And so I want people to start with the mindset. It's a commitment. I believe it's ordained by God and is undergirded by emotion. If void of God because of the lack of spiritual side, then what are we left with? The institution is broken. Whenever there's a free agent, what happens when a free agent? I can come and go as I please. The value system is not solid because there is no foundation to say unity, togetherness, love, cherish. In fact, today, and when you marry folks, they never put in there love, cherish, obey, all that stuff. It's just some other stuff they make up. And so if the foundation is broken, just like any home, the house will crumble. And believe me, to live with another or to be unified with another is already challenging enough, whether you're married or not married. But that relationship has to have time to grow and to flourish. And sometimes that relationship, just like a tree, it needs pruning. And pruning is healthy. It's painful, but it's healthy. Because what happens after you've been pruned? You flourish. The tree flourishes. And we're going to go through, it's not if, it's when we're going to go through those challenging times. And the question is, your character will be reflected in times of challenges. The rocky roads, if you will, the challenge, I call them the valleys. That's when you'll see your real character of a person. It's when they're in the valleys, not the mountaintops, and we're celebrating, we're doing all this stuff. It's in the valleys that we find our true self. When we're facing those adversities in life, when we lose a job and all of a sudden, hey, I was in it for the money, now there's no money, I'm out. And I would also say, I grew up in a time where it was just that you stayed married regardless. I mean, you just don't separate and all that. I think that's true, but not true. And we're going to try to work that through. But at the end of the day, he doesn't cause for you to be neglected or abandoned, if you will, or where there's misappropriation within the relationship. He doesn't call you to remain in that marriage. In fact, those are the two sacraments that even the Bible says, hey, you have the right to walk away. It's not that I want you to try to work it through. It's the first step and seek counsel and all of that. But At the end of the day, you're not to be in a relationship that's abusive, that someone is just sexually mistreating you, or whatever the case may be, or neglect you. But I say seek counsel for that. Seek reconciliation. But if reconciliation cannot be had, then you are forgiven for those options that you take. But we got to go through the struggles. Go through the struggles first versus just saying, hey, I'm out of here, I'm done. The grass isn't greener always on the other side. You're going to find the same issues. It's going to look good in the summer. But by the time you get to the winter, that grass looking about the same. It's looking ugly, man. And yet we got a new yard to mow. And we don't know how to navigate it. Why? Here's the key. Never been taught. We've never been shown what true love is. We've never been shown what relationship is. See, that's what single parents do. We've never been really taught. Back in the day, you date your daughter or you date your son, things like that. You take them out, you show them how to treat a woman. You show them what marriage look like. If you don't model behavior, tell them how to do it. You're going to then show them how to do it. Then you're going to let them do it. And then you're going to have the critique around what they do. And then you just do it all over again. Well, guess what? What if there's no one to tell you? What if there's no one to show you? What if there's no one to allow you to do that in the proper form because you didn't learn the proper form? And there's no critique of it. There's no consequences. There's nothing. Then we devalue the very thing that we say is critical in our life and in our society. And I believe as the family goes, society goes. And marriage is the model of what family should be about.
We do have to look at the values of family because I think people, they don't even understand what values family has, let alone themselves. One of the first things I do with my clients is we look at your values. Whether you're single and you want to get in a relationship, or if you are just trying to enhance your career, your life, we look at your values. When we begin to put family in the mix, it's a mix of values. It's not so much of what I believe family should be, it's what we believe family should be. That's why when you find the right person, values are so important. What are some of the most important values you have found to family?
Man, you're getting into my family discipleship stuff now. In fact, we peak view a genealogy. That way you can see what your real values are and how you were shaped and what roots you come from. Not that you necessarily going to be that person, but at least it gives you a foundation. And then we move into a value discussion. And we're not talking about the nice values everybody like to put on the board because it's real sexy and attractive. True values is really, what do you truly, truly believe? What do you truly have what I call conviction for? Because there are some values that's behavioral driven. There's some values you're going to be committed to, as I talked about. But the question is, what are you convicted? There's a difference between behavior modification and conviction. I'll give you a quick story. My grandfather had a value of education. He grew up in a very small place called Round Pond, Arkansas. If you know where Round Pond, Arkansas, you'll be one of the less than 1% of people that I found in America to know where it is. Okay. It's finally made the Google map. In fact, it's literally a town with a round pond. It used to have a railroad track go through it, and there was 24 homes around this round pond, and it was Round Pond, Arkansas. Booming. I mean, it's got 2,400 people. It's just not too. It's about 40 some miles outside of Memphis. But anyway, he grew up there. My grandfather grew up, and his father passed away. And so, in 2 years old, back then they were farmers. So he took over farming responsibility. Now, he never was a laborer. He was actually a supervisor eventually of the hands. And that's why he met my grandmother. And so they met, got married, and they eventually moved to Chicago, which is where I was raised. But my grandfather had to drop out of the second grade to take care of the farm. And so back then there was a time and era where education was the big deal. Get education, get out of it. And my grandfather was moved. My grandfather was great with his hands. He was an engineer. In fact, he became an engineer with a second grade education in one of the largest airline companies in the world, United Airlines. But they kept trying to hold him back, saying, you don't have a diploma. And so he said, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a diploma. He could have went and got a GED, could have knocked it out, boom, boom, but he didn't do that. I don't know what happened, but he went on some type of accelerated program. And he set in the third grade, the fourth grade, the fifth grade, all the way through. It took him years to do this. He didn't even need it by the time he finished it. But he ended up getting a high school diploma and walking across the stage. And I remember asking him, I mean, Pops, why in the heck did you do that, man? Why didn't you just take the GED, get it out? He says, no, see, this wasn't for me. This was for you and the next generation. Education is critical to progress our family and our life. That's just what he believed in. And not just my employment. He'd already made it to where he was a chief engineer with a second grade education, now, with a high school diploma. But he wanted us to see what he truly valued. Well, guess what? Of his 4 kids, 3 of them went on to college. One of them became a superintendent of a school. His grandkids, 80% of his grandkids now have a college education or master's degree or a doctorate degree. I mean, this is all stemming from a man that probably a generation that had less than 10% with a higher education college degree to 80% in 2 generations with college degrees or higher. He valued education. So the question is, you have to examine, do you truly value what you say you value? Do you believe what you say is really real? Your values determine who you are, your character, how you spend your time, how you connect with people, what love really means to you, what marriage really means to you, what family means to you. And so I ask people to examine what they truly value. How do you do that? One, say, look at your checkbook. That'll tell you pretty much what you value. Look at your schedule. Keep a schedule of yourself in 30-minute intervals for 2 weeks. See how you're investing your time, because I believe in time, talent, and treasure. And so what are you spending your time doing? So the time is your scheduling. The talent, what are you spending your time doing? What are you spending most of your focus on? And the treasure, what are you spending your money on? If you look at those 3 things, you will understand what you truly value. And what underneath what I call them the drivers, right? Remember that spiritual drive, physical drive. What's driving it? Do you have a desire do you value money because you just have a desire to be better or do this or do that? Or do you desire money because you have a heart of generosity and you just want to give it away? What's driving you determines your values, right? Do you have a heart for people? Do you just don't like people? I mean, that's going to drive you to connect or not, right? Do you have a heart for work and work ethic? It's a value. Do you have a heart to help others? It's a value. What's your time? What's your talent? What's your treasure? Track those things will determine your real, true values in life.
I love that. And all of that is going to be important. Really get into the aspect of learning about themselves and then learning about what they want for their family too. Because as we began the episode talking about Warren Buffett, about how he viewed success with the ones he loves him back, we all want to be loved from the people we love too. Now, you might not know how to truly love, right? There's love languages, there's different aspects. You might not have been taught how to love, and you don't know how to do it well. We can learn how to love. We can learn how to understand our values truly instead of just surface level stuff of, I want to be healthy. Health is a value of mine. Well, it's probably a value for everybody, but they don't do the things that they necessarily need to do to keep that health. Is it truly a value of yours? There's so much that we talked about, and there's going to be so many questions. I'm sure people are going to be reaching out to you and just trying to figure out, where do I begin? Because this is going to be a question that many people are going to be at with all this wealth of information that we just received today. They're going to say, where do we begin? Well, one step at a time. And one of the best places to begin is always to inquire about, how can people reach you, right? Because that's going to be the first step. That's going to be the first stop. And then also give us some final words to leave the episode on.
Yeah, so they can find us on our website, obviously, Victorious, IOUS, victoriousfamily.org. Ton of resources to help you and family to flourish and so forth. And then this is crazy. I give out my personal cell phone number because I want to talk to people. 708-653-8250. That shows you my commitment to you. People say, hey, I want to help you. I want you to flourish. Well, I want you to flourish. And so call me. Let's talk about it. Let's bring up the question. We have trained over 100,000 parents. We're now in 39 countries. And my job today, I went from managing 2/3 of the Coca-Cola company, $50 billion, to helping families across this nation. Why? Because I see a moral and spiritual decay in our nation. And I believe that it's impacted because of the family, the dynamics of the families unraveling. And so it's more important to me to really tighten that family up versus try to figure out how to sell another ounce of that colored water. Because the colored water, I'm bringing a different water, but the colored water, it's not going to get you to where I'm talking about ultimately. But this other water is one that will refresh, restore, reignite, and reunite. And so that's where I go. I hope that you come. Last words. Over the last 50 years, we have drifted as a nation, we have drifted as a family. It is even hard to determine what marriage is. It's even difficult to even determine what does it mean to parent. As much as we want to do the right thing, we want to love our kids, the fact that there are many influences in our kids' life today. In fact, if you're not being intentional in raising your kids, trust me, someone else will be intentional. Whether it's the media, whether it's someone down the street, whether it's a buddy down the road or whatever, if you're not intentional, trust me, someone is going to be intentional in raising your kids. Why not be that spiritual leader or that leader within your home? And we can help you with that. Today, our kids are growing up with a greater need for community, for love, for affirmation, for confirmation than ever before. There's a void because of the friends or these fake friends in their life is not fulfilling. They need someone like you as a parent, as a brother, as a sister, as an uncle, as a father, as a grandfather. They need a family. They need a unit that cares about them more than they care about themselves. Are you that person? Well, we can help you. We can help families because our passion is to help families to flourish. We'll start you in an intentional process so you can examine where you are as a family to see what's really rooted in my heart today and how can I truly be transformed. I think it's the most important thing we can do. The question is, really at the end of the day, for me, ultimately, is do your children believe? And what do they believe in? And who is being instructional in teaching them what to believe?
They say if you don't teach your children, someone else will. And we have the opportunity as parents, as family units, as we said in the Black community early on, it takes a village. We are living in a technology-based world. We have become so connected that we have become disconnected. You don't know your neighbors. You don't speak to people. We're always looking at our phones. We're not looking around to how we can help people. We're not looking around how we can help the ones we love truly, because we're always looking at what do we need first? What do I need now? Versus what does my family need today? How can I be of service to others? There's just so many things that we have gone astray with. And of course, times are changing, the world is moving, but it doesn't necessarily mean our foundation has to be always cracking. And for us to suffer from those, I guess you could say, those crevices and those pitfalls, those valleys that many people are going through today, we can learn to build ourselves up to a level, a foundation, to a mindset that's going to help us in any situation grow, and then understand that the things that we do today, the things that we focus on today and now are going to be something that we're not going to regret later on. You're not going to regret spending time with your kids. You're not going to regret spending time with your loved ones and loving them, because one day, God forbid, I don't want it to happen anytime soon. They're gone. You're going to regret the time that you didn't spend with them. You're going to regret the things that you didn't do with them. You're going to regret not taking action, because today is the day that you can take action. So I encourage everyone to reach out, learn about what you're doing, or to learn how to build your family up is basically what I want, because there's going to be aspect of the spirituality of family, the physical aspect of family, and then the intellectual aspect of family, as we talked about, all important things. And I encourage everyone, the links that for his website going to be in the description box below. I am going to talk to him after to see if he wants his cell phone in the description box below, because I don't want like robots and stuff to start texting you and stuff. But either way, loved our conversation. So powerful, so impactful. And thank you so much for coming on. All right, everyone, I'd like to thank you so much for watching that interview with Terence Chatmon and myself. As you can see, great conversation. He is just spot on. He comes from a good place. He has a good heart, good man. And it's hard to find individuals like that. I will say, from meeting, again, I talk to a lot of people. I work with a lot of people, connected with a lot of people. But When you meet someone who's truly you just have that connection with, those are the people that you inquire. You say, hey, Terence, I have this situation in my family. He can help. Hey, this is going on in my mind. He can help. This is where we have to look at so many different aspects to mindset, because how I operate with mindset is more on limiting beliefs versus how he's operating on family. Everyone has their own specialty. And when it comes to what you need, I always encourage people to go to different coaches. That's why we have coaching in session. We bring on hundreds of coaches, if not, I think hundreds still at this point because we're only at episode 400 and something. This is going to be a great opportunity for you to inquire how you can fix your situation. Now, your situation might be dire. It might seem like there is no way out, but there's always a way. They say that if there's a will, there's a way. And if you're listening to these episodes, if you're listening to Coaching in Session, if you're a long-time listener, if you're a new-time listener to the podcast, you get to make a choice today. You get to make a choice to repair what's broken. You get to make a choice to fix generations, as he said with his great-grandfather or grandfather. He is basically saying we can make the change. What you bring and what you put forth and what you show is going to be the marker that they shoot for. It's almost like passing the baton, passing the torch. In a sense, we do it so we can make sure the next generation is better than the last generation. However, sometimes, especially in our world, in our society, in our culture today, we are willing to break what our ancestors have done to build us up. It's almost like they have built $1 million business, and this $1 million business can help you flourish. And it's not so much just about money. It's just about the aspect of building something big. From there, you have a choice to continue to build a business or to run the business into the ground. Are we looking at our own personal treasures, or are we looking at the treasures that we want to bring for the generations to come? Most people are very self-centered. Most people are focused on me. Most people want I versus us, we, together, family. When we try to enhance our situation, it's going to be so much easier. It's going to be so much better when you do it together. It can begin with family. It can begin with a phone call, a text message, an email, reaching out to Terence and just inquiring, hey, I want to enhance my family. I want to enhance my situation. I want to start a family. Wherever you are in the aspect of family, this is going to be a wonderful resource, a wonderful asset in your corner that is going to be able to help you solve so many problems that you're dealing with. And it begins with just a simple action. And the action is you just saying, hey, I'm willing, I'm ready, and I'm able. And then from there, your life begins to change. You start to define things differently. Your mindset starts to shift. And then everything else starts to fall into place. Because right now you might be struggling, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow you have to be struggling. It doesn't mean that next year you have to be struggling. Heck, it doesn't mean you have to live a life full of struggle. There are going to be moments when you struggle. Those moments are going to be necessary to build you up. But we're looking at how we can flourish. We're looking at how we can grow. And as Terence said, sometimes we have to do the pruning. So what needs pruning in your life? What needs adjusting in your life? What needs to be fixed? What needs to be remedied? What needs to be looked at? This is why we are here. This is why we do coaching. This is why we want you to take action so you can be in a better place. It might not happen immediately, but it will happen certainly. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.